Would you pray with me, please? O Holy One, in this time, may the words of my mouth, the meditation of all of our hearts, be pleasing and acceptable to you, for you are our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. So yesterday was the day which is named, introduced, informs us that winter is here. It was the winter solstice. And some of you may not keep track of those things, but I find them kind of fascinating. Summer solstice, winter solstice, equinox, and all those kinds of things. And so it's a little bit on my radar. So I've been thinking a lot, because of a group that I'm a part of what this might mean to us. And what happens is that at the winter solstice, that is our day where we have the least amount of light and the greatest amount of darkness, at least here in the northern hemisphere, right? And we often use the term the longest night because the night darkness can be so long. And for those who are grieving and going through times of sorrow, it seems like this whole season is longer and longer. But winter solstice is also the time where we shift from the days getting shorter, as they have been since summertime, to getting longer. In essence, there is more light. It is this automatic shift that takes place that sometimes we're not aware of. I know certainly when we lived in northern Wisconsin, winter was winter. And it took forever for the daylight to come back, right? It seemed it was always dark all winter long at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, which isn't really so, because the light was coming. We just get stuck in the cold and the snow and forget that part. But this is what happened. So years ago, Christmas and winter solstice occurred about the same time. And through time, the church fathers decided that, well, it came about that these 3 days between winter solstice and Christmas was fixed, if you will, because of the calendar. The calendar didn't have enough days in it. We needed to go from 361 or something to 365 in order for everything to work out. And so where we gained time was in between winter solstice and what is now celebrated as Jesus' birth on December 25th. Otherwise, these things would coincide. So in my mind, when we think about the birth of Christ coming, we celebrate on Christmas Eve and then into Christmas Day, it really is meant to be this turning toward the light. And if we hold in ourselves what it means to be a follower of this Christ child, a follower of this Jesus whose birth we celebrate every year, we have opportunity to turn our lives toward the light, especially now. But yes, each and every day. But it's hard. And I get it. It's hard right now to stay focused on the light, the turning toward the light, because our world seems all around us so grim and so dark and so angry, and so many people are so anxious. And it's affecting all of us in ways that perhaps we don't recognize. But I truly believe it is. We're somehow missing this piece where the light is within us, where that spark of God lives in us. This anger and this anxiousness comes to us every single day, especially through the news. And I know that some of you, like me, watch it carefully. But it's there. This anger that comes out in rage in personal relationships in people's lives. And the height and the torment for families under distress is extreme this time of year. There was a report on the news the other day that Las Vegas has one of the highest percentages per people of elderly suicide in the country. What's going on? It also nationwide for the children, for LGBTQ kids, the rate of suicide because families are shunning them and shoving them out the door and nobody accepts them. And where is this light? Where is our turning as a people? We have such a responsibility to be the people of the light that helps the world see the love that comes, the God with us, the God in the midst of our lives. That is our calling as the people of God, as the followers of this Jesus whose birth we will celebrate when we come and worship on Tuesday night. But here we are in this whole season talking about joy. How do we get there? How do we live there? How do we show that to the world? It is for us to do. We may think that it is for someone else, but that is not true. It is for each one of us to do in our own way. And we will each do it uniquely, with our own gifts. But the reality is that it needs to be done. We see the repeat of history, and there have been many, many times in history where the world has seemed dark. And it has been. And we are living through one of those times. And so when Pastor Samar and I stand here Sunday after Sunday and we'll gather with many, many people on Tuesday night and proclaim this way of celebrate joy, we want for you and for the two of us to embody this sense of offering this unconditional love to the world. The world is not quite getting it. It's just not. It's missing something. And again, we see the evidence of that all around us. I stand each week and invite you as we begin worship with your feet on the floor and your backs against the pews to breathe in and recognize what you bring to worship with you. Whether it's sorrow or grief or great joy and celebration, that God is present with you. In this season, we use the phrase God with us, this Immanuel is within. That spark of love is within you. But sometimes we just kind of let it go. And don't embody it and really don't have it affect us. We don't have it touch us because it might mean that we might cry a little bit. We might be a little bit vulnerable. See, our world wants us to be strong and fight like armies. Stand tall. And yet, what is our lesson? But God comes to us as a small and helpless baby. So vulnerability is a way that we can embrace this calling to represent and have known to the world around us, our families, our neighbors, our city, God with us. The world wants to show its power. And yet here's this babe. And it's not that power is bad. It's just that Right now, in so much of the world, the power is causing so much harm to the least of these. And wherever in the world you want to look, that is what's happening. And so what if we looked at this text from Matthew? Looked at Joseph. Look at his life. Think about it. Think about rehearing the words that Jimmy shared with us. Here's a man who's getting ready to marry a woman. He finds out she's pregnant. What would your reaction be? It might depend. But some of us are going to react really poorly to that, right? And there we get into the habits of our lives, the anger, the anxiousness, the choices we make, and the poor responses that we have to humanity, right? And yet we have Joseph, so caring about Mary, that he responds, yes, because of a dream, but he responds in this way of love. Not the way that our world responds. Sometimes news comes to us about our children, our jobs, where we live, our families, and we want to fight. We want to say, no, not in my world. And here's Joseph, following and listening to a way, to God's way, that is so different than our way. The first response is mercy and love. What is ours? When something comes and hits our lives that causes a disruption in the flow, or in the force, if you want to go do that Jedi thing, what's the response? But so often we want to fight back instead of sit and breathe. Breathe in the love. Breathe out the joy. See, as that happens within us, in our bodies, as God moves through, it's not that we have to take in the love and spew out the badness. No. We can take in the love and breathe out the joy. Because that's the transformation that God brings to us with this babe. The world is changed because of Jesus. But my question for each one of us, myself included, is what does that mean for me? How is it changed in me? How is my life going to be different from December 25th? Moving and concluding 2019 and moving into 2020, that freaks me out. How am I going to live differently? Because no matter how many times we've heard this Christmas story, that whether we're 3 years old or 33 years old or 93 years old, the story is meant for us to hear in a way that we embody it and breathe it out new. We celebrate that baby being born new. We celebrate with Joseph. Oh my gosh, I didn't expect this in my life, but I'm going to make it good. And how do we embrace each other? How do we, neighbor to neighbor, person to person, sitting in pews or around a round table over a cup of coffee in fellowship hall, or around a tree with families, or walking on the street by ourselves? How do we embrace what is being born in us? You see, all of the darkness, all of the time the light was going away, all of the time we were moving into the days being shorter and shorter, is like the gestation of pregnancy. We wait. And now is the time that we're getting ready for that birthing to happen, yes, even in us and even, yes, in our church. The birthing of what God is making new here for this, not this building and not just you, but for these people that call Las Vegas home, that call this country loved, that call this planet theirs. What difference does it make that Joseph responded the way that he did and we believe that God is with us? How then do we walk gently and softly into this world? So in these days, where the light is coming even now, because the solstice was yesterday, so there will be more brightness. But more importantly, how will that light transform, change, yes, even you, even me, even me.